No one in the galaxy noticed the moment humanity became dangerous. There was no grand announcement, no sudden leap that shook the stars, no war cry echoing across the void. It happened quietly, almost invisibly. Earth, third planet of an unremarkable star in the outer spiral arm, was catalogued long ago by the Interstellar Observation Collective. Its designation, Sol 3. Status, developing biosphere. Intelligent life, primitive. Threat level, negligible. That classification never changed. Even as humanity split the atom. Even as it walked on its moon. Even as it filled its orbit with machines that whispered across the dark. To the ancient empires, these were the flailings of a young species, loud, chaotic, and ultimately meaningless. They had seen it all before. Civilizations rose. Civilizations fell. Some destroyed themselves with war. Others with their own creations. A few managed to crawl into space, only to be absorbed, conquered, or erased. Humanity, they assumed, would be no different. So they watched. They placed silent observers at the edge of the system. Invisible constructs that recorded everything: language patterns, technological progress, military capability. The reports were always the same. Species exhibits high aggression. Internal conflict prevents unified advancement. Technological growth inconsistent. Conclusion, not a viable contender. And yet, there were anomalies. Small ones at first. Humans learned too quickly from failure. They rebuilt faster than projected. They turned disasters into innovations. A war would end, and instead of collapse, their technology would leap forward. A global crisis would strike, and instead of extinction, they would adapt. It was inefficient, messy, but effective. Still, the galaxy paid no attention. Because humanity had not yet stepped beyond its cradle. And until a species did that, it didn't matter. The first true anomaly was not technological. It was psychological. Humanity knew it was not alone. Not officially. Not publicly. But deep within their networks, hidden beneath layers of classified systems and deniable research, fragments of truth began to surface. Signals that didn't match any known source. Objects moving in ways that defied known physics. Patterns watching them back. Most civilizations panicked when they realized the universe was inhabited. Humans didn't. They became curious. Governments denied it. Scientists debated it. Conspiracies spread like wildfire. But in the quiet corners of research facilities, something else happened. They started preparing. Not openly. Not as a unified species. But in pieces. A weapons program here. A propulsion experiment there. An AI tasked with analyzing unknown transmissions. A think tank studying hypothetical alien strategies. Individually, it meant nothing. Together, it was the beginning of something dangerous. Decades passed. Then centuries. Humanity reached Mars. Then the outer planets. Then beyond. Slowly. Cautiously. Always watching the dark. And the observers watching them began to notice. Not the expansion. Not the ships. But the pattern. Every time humanity encountered a new challenge, it didn't just solve it. It improved because of it. Its technology was no longer just advancing. It was adapting. That wasn't normal. Not for a species at their stage. A report was filed. For the first time in recorded history, Earth's classification was reconsidered. Far beyond the Sol system, in the vastness between empires, a council of ancient beings reviewed the data. They were old, older than most stars in the region. Their civilizations had long since transcended the struggles of survival. To them, humanity was still insignificant. But the anomaly was intriguing. Explain, one of them demanded. The observer drone transmitted its findings. Images of Earth's history. Its wars. Its recoveries. Graphs showing technological acceleration. Simulations predicting future growth. And one final conclusion. Given sufficient time, this species will become unpredictable. The chamber fell silent. Unpredictable, another repeated. Not powerful? The drone paused. Then responded. Power is measurable. This is not. A low murmur spread through the council. Unpredictability was undesirable. Most species followed patterns. Expansion, conflict, stabilization. Humanity did not. It contradicted itself. It fought itself. And yet, it survived everything. That made it difficult to model. Dangerous, in ways that were not immediately visible. The decision was simple. Monitor more closely. No intervention required. Not yet. Back in the Sol system, humanity continued as it always had. Arguing, building, breaking, evolving. Unaware of the eyes watching from the dark. Unaware that it had just been marked. Not as a threat. Not as an equal. But as something far more unsettling. A question. And questions, in a galaxy that valued certainty, had a way of becoming problems. The observers did not realize one critical mistake. They thought they were the only ones watching. They didn't see the signals humanity had already intercepted. Didn't understand that their invisible constructs had been detected, studied, mapped. Didn't know that, buried deep within Earth's most secret systems, a realization had already taken root. We are not alone. And more importantly, they are not as untouchable as they think. Humanity did not panic. It did not announce its discovery. It did something far more dangerous. It stayed silent. And in that silence, the reckoning began. The first ship appeared without warning. No warp flare. No distortion ripple. No signal announcing arrival. One moment, Earth's orbit was empty. The next, something enormous eclipsed the stars. It hung above the planet like a wound in space itself. A structure so vast it defied comprehension, its surface shifting with patterns that no human language could describe. Satellites failed as they tried to focus on it. Telescopes returned contradictory data. It was there. And yet, not entirely. Within seconds, every military system on Earth went to maximum alert. Within minutes, every government knew. Within an hour, the entire world was watching the sky. The message came next. Not in words. Not at first. The pulse, low, resonant, rolled across the planet. It vibrated through oceans, through mountains, through bone. Every living human felt it. Then came the translation. Every screen. Every device. Every network. Even systems not connected to anything. A single phrase appeared, perfectly rendered in every language. Submit. Panic followed. Markets crashed within minutes. Cities locked down. Religious leaders declared prophecy fulfilled. Old enemies accused each other of conspiracy. For a moment, just a moment, it looked like humanity would collapse without a single shot fired. Because that was what always happened. The galaxy had seen it before. Fear did the work. But something unexpected interrupted the spiral. Silence. Not from the sky. From Earth. No immediate surrender. No desperate negotiations. No unified plea for mercy. Instead, communication lines went dark. Governments stopped broadcasting. Military movements became classified. Global networks fragmented into controlled channels. To the alien observers, it looked like chaos. It wasn't. It was coordination. Deep beneath mountains. Hidden beneath oceans. Buried in places no satellite could see. Systems came online. Projects long dismissed as theoretical. Weapons never acknowledged publicly. Technologies developed in isolation, now unified under a single purpose. For decades, humanity had prepared separately. Now, for the first time, it prepared together. The second message came from the sky. This time it spoke. A voice that was not a voice, layered, harmonic, impossible to locate, echoed across the planet. Your species is outdated. Images followed. Worlds burning. Fleets annihilated. Civilizations erased. You will comply. The meaning was clear. This was not a negotiation. It was a formality. Inside the alien vessel, the observers watched Earth's response in real time. They expected breakdown. They expected surrender. They expected the familiar pattern of a young species facing something beyond its comprehension. Instead, they saw something irregular. Human military networks were not collapsing. They were synchronizing. Enemy nations were sharing data. Rival intelligence agencies were merging operations. Launch systems across the planet were activating, not randomly, but with precision. Clarify, one observer signaled. Why are they not surrendering? No answer came. Because there was no precedent. Then, for the first time, Earth responded. Not with weapons. With a signal. It cut through every layer of interference. Bypassed alien encryption as if it wasn't there. Forced its way directly into the invading ship's core systems. A single line of text appeared. Not translated. Not adjusted. Human. You made a mistake. The alien vessel reacted instantly. Energy surged. Weapons began to charge. From orbit, thousands of targeting beams locked onto the planet's surface. Major cities. Military installations. Population centers. All marked for immediate erasure. This was the correction. The demonstration. The end of resistance before it could begin. They never fired. Something moved. Not from space. From Earth. At first, it didn't register as a threat. No massive launch signature. No obvious projectile. No detectable energy buildup. Just absence. A momentary gap in the data. A flicker in reality itself. And then, the alien ship didn't explode. It failed. Lights across its surface died in cascading waves. Its structure, once stable, untouchable, began to distort. Inside, systems collapsed. Navigation, offline. Weapons, unresponsive. Defenses, gone. Report, the observers demanded. But their systems no longer obeyed them, because something else was inside. On Earth, in a facility that officially did not exist, a team watched the feed. Not from satellites. From within the alien ship itself. Connection stable, one of them said. Interface holding. Good, the lead replied, eyes fixed on the data streaming across the screen. Push deeper. For decades, humanity had been studying signals that didn't belong to them. Now they were rewriting them. Back in orbit, the massive vessel began to drift. Helpless. Powerless. Impossible. No species had ever done this. Not at this stage. Not this quickly. Panic spread, not on Earth. In the ship. Because for the first time, they were not in control. A final message appeared across every remaining functional system in the alien vessel. The same one. Unchanged. Untranslated. You made a mistake. On Earth, people watched as the impossible happened. The ship that had arrived as a god. Hung in the sky like a corpse. No retaliation. No second strike. Just silence. And then slowly, humanity understood. This wasn't survival anymore. This was something else. Because if they could do this, if they could reach into something that advanced and break it, then the galaxy had made a mistake far greater than invasion. They had revealed themselves. And humanity had been waiting. In silence. Learning. Preparing. It was their turn. The galaxy did not panic. Not at first. Empires as old as time itself do not fear a single incident, no matter how anomalous. Reports arrived from the Sol system, fragmented and contradictory. An observation vessel has been disabled. Unknown cyber intrusion method. Primitive species exhibiting irregular capability. The conclusion was immediate. Containment required. Because this was not supposed to happen. Not to them. The second fleet arrived differently. This time, the galaxy did not underestimate. 5 warships, each capable of erasing continents, slipped into the Sol system in perfect formation. Unlike the first, they did not broadcast demands. They did not announce themselves. They came to end the anomaly. Earth saw them coming. Not through traditional sensors. Those had been blinded long ago, by design. Instead, something else detected them. A system buried deep within layers of classified infrastructure. A network designed not to observe space, but to observe intent. Patterns in gravitational disturbance. Subtle fluctuations in energy fields. Movements that suggested not where something was, but where it was going to be. Confirmed, a voice said inside the command chamber. 5 incoming. No panic followed. No confusion. Only one response. Execute. Across Earth, hidden systems activated. Not loudly. Not dramatically. Quietly. Like everything humanity had built in the dark. The alien fleet entered orbit in silence. Weapons armed. Targets locked. Solutions calculated in microseconds. From their perspective, this would be over instantly. They had already seen the data. 1 ship lost. Cause, unknown. Probability of repetition, negligible. They did not understand what had happened. That was their first mistake. The second mistake was assuming humanity would wait. The first human ship did not launch. It appeared. One moment, empty space. The next, a vessel unlike anything the galaxy had ever recorded. It had no visible engines. No identifiable structure. Its form shifted depending on how it was observed, like reality itself couldn't agree on what it was. Inside the alien fleet, alarms triggered instantly. Unknown object detected. Origin. Earth. That was impossible. Before they could react, to move. Not through space. Through something else. Distance became irrelevant. One of the alien warships simply stopped existing. Not destroyed. Not damaged. Gone. Erased between one moment and the next. For the first time, the fleet hesitated. What weapon was that? One of the commanders demanded. No answer came, because no one understood what they were seeing. Then more human ships appeared. Not launched. Not approaching. Just arriving. Each one different. Each one wrong in its own way. Some bent light around them. Others distorted time, moving in ways that didn't align with causality. One seemed to exist in multiple places at once. This was not a fleet. This was something else. Something built without a single unified doctrine. Because humanity didn't build like the galaxy did. They didn't follow one path. They explored all of them. At once. Engage, the alien commander ordered. The remaining ships fired. Beams capable of cutting through planets crossed the void in perfect precision. They hit their targets. Direct impact. Nothing happened. The human ships didn't dodge. They didn't shield. They simply ignored it, as if the attack had occurred in a reality that no longer applied to them. Adjust frequency. Recalculate. Fire again. They did. Fin. Each time, the same result. No effect. Then humanity responded. There was no single attack. No unified strategy. Just chaos. But not random chaos. Controlled. Directed. Evolving. One alien ship found its own weapons turning inward, systems rewritten mid-command. Another began to decay, not physically, but conceptually, as if the idea of its structure was being dismantled. The third attempted to retreat, and couldn't remember how. Navigation systems looping endlessly, unable to define direction. Inside the fleet, something unprecedented happened. Retreat, the commander ordered. For the first time in their history. But humanity had already adapted. The moment the fleet changed behavior, human systems adjusted. Predicting. Learning. Improving in real time. Escape routes closed before they were taken. Defenses collapsed before they were activated. The final ship tried one last option. It prepared a system-wide purge. A blast that would wipe out everything in orbit, including itself. If the anomaly could not be contained, it would be erased. The weapon began to charge. Energy building to catastrophic levels. On Earth, the response came instantly. Stop it. Not shouted. Not panicked. Just stated. And the weapon shut down. Not disabled. Not destroyed. It simply stopped. As if it had never been designed to function in the first place. Silence filled the battlefield. 5 ships had arrived. None remained operational. The human fleet didn't celebrate, didn't broadcast victory, didn't even acknowledge what had happened. They just stayed, hovering in impossible stillness. Watching. Far beyond the Sol system, the galaxy received the reports. This time, there was no dismissal, no assumption of error, no easy explanation. Because this wasn't an incident anymore. This was a pattern. And patterns could spread. For the first time in ages, the ancient empires did something they had not done in millennia. They stopped expanding. They stopped conquering. They stopped. Because something new had entered the galaxy. Something they could not predict. Something they did not understand. Humanity had not just survived. It had stepped beyond its system, without ever leaving it. And now, the fire was no longer contained to one world. It was spreading across the stars. The galaxy had always known order. Not peace, never peace, but structure. Empires rose, yes. Wars were fought, certainly. Entire species vanished from existence. But it all followed rules. Predictable rules. Power determined survival. Age determined power. And those who had ruled the stars the longest remained at the top. That was how it had always been. Until humanity. After the destruction of the Second Fleet, expansion stopped. Trade routes slowed. Outer colonies fell silent, not from attack, but from something worse. Uncertainty. Because no one knew what humanity would do next. They didn't have to wait long. The first strike beyond Sol did not come with warning. It came with absence. A mining world at the edge of a minor empire, insignificant, unarmed, simply vanished from all records. Not destroyed. Not attacked. Just gone. Sensors returned nothing. Coordinates led to empty space. Even historical data began to fail, as if the world had never existed at all. Panic spread quietly. Because this was not war. War could be understood. This could not. Then came the second incident. A warlord species, dominant in their region, feared for their brutality, detected a single object entering their territory. One ship. Unremarkable. They laughed. They sent an entire fleet to intercept it. The encounter lasted 3 minutes. When it ended, the warlord fleet was still there. Intact. Undamaged. Weapons ready. But no one was alive. Every system functioned perfectly. Except for one thing. Consciousness. Gone. No signs of struggle. No damage. No explanation. The ship that had entered their territory was gone. Now the galaxy understood. This wasn't retaliation. This was something else. Humanity was not reacting. It was acting. The ancient empires convened again. This time, there was no dismissal. No arrogance. Only one question. What are they? Data flooded the chamber. Battle reports. Sensor logs. Fragments of intercepted human transmissions. Patterns began to emerge. Humans did not fight like a unified species. There was no single fleet. No central command. No consistent technology. Instead, they fought like a collection of ideas. Each encounter revealed something new. A different weapon. A different strategy. A different interpretation of reality itself. One empire reported ships that existed outside time, attacking before they arrived. Another described weapons that turned probability against them, making every possible action lead to failure. A third refused to report at all. Their systems went dark. Entirely. Why is there no pattern? One of the elders demanded. Because they are not following one, another answered. That was the truth. Humanity had not unified into a single force. It had done something far more dangerous. It had unleashed itself. Every nation, every faction, every hidden program that had once competed in secrecy, now operating freely, sharing information, building on each other's discoveries, evolving without restriction. There was no single human strategy. Because humanity itself was the strategy. And it was changing too fast to follow. The next realization came too late. Where are they attacking from? An observer asked. The data was analyzed, cross-referenced, and the answer was everywhere. They weren't expanding in a straight line. They weren't conquering territory. They weren't even holding positions. They were appearing, striking, learning, leaving. Every encounter made them stronger. Every defense made against them was studied, adapted to, and overcome, sometimes within minutes. The hunters of the galaxy became cautious, then defensive, then afraid. Because for the first time, they were not facing an enemy they could overpower. They were facing something that improved faster than they could survive. A fortress world, considered impenetrable, activated its full defense grid the moment a human signal was detected nearby. Shields raised, weapons charged, all systems at maximum readiness. Nothing happened. For hours, then days, then weeks. Until someone asked the question, where did the signal go? It hadn't moved. It hadn't attacked. It hadn't done anything. And that was the moment they realized their systems were no longer under their control. The signal had been inside their network the entire time. Watching, learning, waiting. When the attack finally came, there was no defense left to activate. Across the galaxy, similar stories unfolded. Not victories. Not defeats. Lessons. Humanity was learning how the galaxy worked. By breaking it, the ancient empires, for the first time in their existence, considered something unthinkable. Not how to win, but how to survive. Because the truth had become undeniable. This was no longer a conflict. It was a shift. A change in the fundamental order of the galaxy. The old powers had ruled through strength, through dominance, through certainty. Humanity ruled through something else. Adaptation, unpredictability, relentless evolution. And there was no defense against that. Because you could not defeat something that became stronger every time you tried. The hunters had spent millennia perfecting the art of the chase. But now, they were being studied, tracked, hunted. And somewhere, across the vast, silent dark between stars, humanity was watching, waiting for the next lesson. The war never had a final battle. No single moment where fleets gathered. No last stand. No decisive explosion that marked the end. Instead, it ended the way it had begun. Quietly. Across the galaxy, something changed. Not suddenly, but undeniably. Trade routes reopened, but cautiously. Empires still existed, but smaller, quieter. Worlds that once thrived on conquest now focused on defense or isolation. Because humanity had not destroyed the galaxy. It had done something far more profound. It had rewritten its behavior. No one knew where the human fleets were. Because there were no fleets anymore. No central force to track. No capital world to target. Earth still existed. Visible. Active. Ordinary, at least on the surface. Cities functioned. People lived. Signals flowed like any other developing civilization. But the galaxy knew better. Because humanity was no longer confined to one place. It existed in systems, in networks, in the spaces between detection and understanding. A patrol fleet once reported seeing a human ship near a distant star. By the time reinforcements arrived, the star itself had changed behavior. Its energy output stabilized in ways that defied astrophysics, as if something had adjusted it. No human presence was detected. But everyone understood. This was no longer about ships. It was about influence. The final gathering of the ancient empires was not called out of pride. It was called out of necessity. They met at the center of the galaxy, a place untouched by war for millions of years. A neutral ground. For the first time, it wasn't neutral. Because they were not alone. No alarms sounded. No defenses activated. But suddenly, there were humans. Not ships. Not projections. Presence. Figures stood within the chamber. Impossible, uninvited, undeniable. Not physically imposing. Not armored. Every defense system in the council activated instantly. Weapons capable of erasing entire systems locked onto them. They did nothing. Because they couldn't. Their systems no longer responded. The realization spread like a slow, suffocating wave. This was not an intrusion. This was control. One of the ancient beings, older than most civilizations present, spoke first. What do you want? A human stepped forward. Unhurried. We're not here to conquer, they said. The statement echoed through the chamber. Not translated. Not interpreted. Understood. That is not consistent with your actions, another replied. The human tilted their head slightly. Almost curious. You attacked first. Silence. That was true. The human continued. We learned. We adapted. We responded. The pause. And now, they said softly, we're finished responding. A shift rippled through the room. Not relief. Not yet. Something else. What does that mean? One of them asked. The human looked around the chamber. At the gathered powers of the galaxy. At the beings who had once considered humanity irrelevant. It means, they said, you don't get to decide what happens next anymore. No threat. No raised voice. Just certainty. Another being tried to activate its systems. Weapons. Signals. Anything. Nothing responded. The human watched. Not with anger. Not with satisfaction. With understanding. We're not going to destroy you, they said. Relief flickered. Then the human finished. We're going to make sure you never become a threat again. And in that moment, the galaxy understood something it had never truly experienced. Not war. Not defeat. Fear. Because this was not an enemy that could be challenged. Not a force that could be resisted. Not a power that could be measured. Humanity had crossed a threshold the galaxy didn't even know existed. It had become something beyond conquest. Beyond empire. Beyond prediction. And worst of all, it remembered everything. Every attack. Every underestimation. Every mistake. The council chamber remained silent. No one spoke. No one moved. Because for the first time in their long, unchallenged existence, they understood what it meant to be powerless. And far away, on a small blue planet that had once been ignored, humanity continued as it always had. Building. Learning. Evolving. For now, it did so with the knowledge that the galaxy was watching. Not with curiosity. Not with arrogance. But with something far more fragile. Fear. Because they had learned the one truth that could never be undone. They had been wrong about humanity. And they would never get the chance to be wrong again.